my friend Malik Hakeem Kafele, and he's going to be presenting to us today on the pandemic of racism. And so I'm just going to turn it over to Malik. Take it away, Star. You can share your screen now.
Can you see me?
We can.
Wait, I don't see anyone. I just see my screen.
That's all right. Just share your screen.
Okay. First of all, thank you, Wolsey family, Wolsey community, Zoom Nation, for joining us on another episode of Black Knowledge Matters. It is my pleasure and my privilege to be the host for this evening's presentation. I would like to share something with you that I wrote probably 10 minutes, about 10 minutes ago. I was inspired to write it, so I'm going to share it with you now before I start the actual presentation. And so bear with me if I sound emotional. I'm sure we all can appreciate that, given the current conditions in which we all face here in America. Here we are again, another day, another Black life lost, another Black life hanging in the balance. Who's next in this barren wasteland of inevitable death, despair, and destruction? We shout out, Black Lives Matter, as our cries and pleas fall on deaf ears. Not because they can't hear us, because they don't care. 911, what is your emergency? America is my emergency. As with any presentation, the presenter's goal is to prepare the audience minds to objectively receive the information without any preconceived notions or expected outcomes. Black Knowledge Matters. This is another Black dot mind exercise. And as with any because a Black mind is a terrible thing to waste. And as with any exercise, no one would start a marathon or a new routine in a fitness center without stretching. And so I prepared 3 questions that I would like to pose to the Wolsey community, the Zoom Nation, just to see where we are at this moment in time in America. Question number 1. I can't see anyone, so you can either chime in or raise your hand.
Just a minute. Let me ask you, Malik. Are you sharing your screen now?
Yes.
Okay, we're not seeing it. So let's get that squared away.
Okay. You know, you want to have it up on your screen, open already on your computer screen, and once you have it open, then go to the share and share what's on your desktop already open.
There we go. Great. Yes, very good.
Do you hear anything I said before this?
Yes, we heard everything, but we just didn't. We just saw your handsome face, and we did not see the screen. So click the green button to make it fuller.
Okay.
And don't forget play when you're going.
Okay, wait. Let me see. All right. Everybody can still see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. Black Knowledge Matters. This is another Black dot mind exercise. Did I already go through that? You already hear that?
It's all right.
Okay.
Keep going.
Because a Black mind is a terrible thing to waste. As with any presentation, the presenter's goal is to prepare the audience minds to objectively receive the information without any preconceived notions or expected outcomes. And what I have done is prepared 3 questions that I like to pose to the audience as a warm-up to the presentation. The first question: the majority of white people in positions of power, history, law, politics, religion, education, economics, entertainment, etc., are racist. True or false? You can just raise your hand or someone could answer for the group.
You can just put that in the chat, everyone.
Okay. The answer is unequivocally true, or else systemic racism would not exist. Question number 2. Name the police department which has a predominant Black force policing predominant white communities. Answer: it does not exist. Why? Because of deadly force, or making an arrest, or ticketing someone, or detaining someone, etc., most likely the person would be white. This is why we make a cry out to community policing. Question number 3. Name the best career path, I can't even read what is saying on the side there, for someone who harbors deep-seated racist animosity against a specific racial group. What's the best career path for someone who holds racial animosity? Answer: a cop. Because if deadly force, or making an arrest, or administering brutality or terrorizing is used, the person most likely would be Black. Those who classify themselves as white have decided, as long as there's a planet Earth, they and they alone shall rule over all that exists, control all resources, define reality, and determine who lives and who has access to power. In the event all else fails, they will make every attempt to destroy the planet and all of its inhabitants. Does anyone know who Mahaka is? It's yours truly. Now a word from our sponsor.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, all praise is due to Allah, Lord of all the worlds, the one God to whom praise is due forever, the one who came to us in the person of Master Farad Muhammad and raised up the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I mean. Assalamu alaikum. How do you feel? Who do we want to hear? Are we going to bring him on? Yes, we're going to bring him on. Well, let us hear from our minister, Minister Malcolm X. Let us bring him on with a round of applause.
Brothers and sisters, I'm here to tell you that I charge the white man. I charge the white man with being the greatest murderer on earth. I charge the white man with being the greatest kidnapper on earth. There is no place in this world that that man can go and say he created peace and harmony. Everywhere he's gone, he's created happiness. Everywhere he's gone, he's created destruction. So I charge him. I charge him with being the greatest kidnapper on this earth. I charge him with being the greatest murderer on this earth. I charge him with being the greatest robber and enslaver on this earth. I charge the white man with being the greatest swine eater on this earth, the greatest drunkard on this earth. He can't deny the charges. You can't deny the charges. We're the living proof of those charges. You and I are the proof. You're not an American, you are the victim of America. You didn't have a choice coming over here. He didn't say, black man, black woman, come on over and help me build America. He said, nigga, get down in the bottom of that boat and I'm taking you over there to help me build America. Being born here does not make you an American. I'm not an American, you're not an American. You're one of the 22 million black people who are the victims of America. You and I, we've never seen any democracy. We ain't seen no democracy on the cotton fields of Georgia, but no democracy down right? We didn't see any democracy on the streets of Harlem, in the streets of Brooklyn, in the streets of Detroit, and Chicago. Ain't no democracy down there. No, we've never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare.
Let me gather my composure, because that opening scene from Spike Lee's Malcolm X, it just does something to me. Not speaking what is real about race relations in order to be sensitive to the feelings of white people is a betrayal to your own people. Furthermore, to cater to the feelings of those that obviously don't give a damn about you clearly proves that your mind's mentally enslaved. Pandemic of racism. This is the topic of this presentation. Pandemic is defined as a prevalent throughout an entire country, continent, or whole world. Racism defined. The idea that one's own race is superior and has the right to dominate others. A policy, system of government, etc., based upon fostering such a doctrine. Discrimination. For times immemorial, African people, Black people have faced a pandemic of racism in the forms of imperialism, colonialism, and so-called white supremacy, manifested in genocide, oppression, and enslavement. Our land, lives, and legacies have come under siege for thousands of years. A pandemic which has murdered thousands, hundreds of millions of our people. Black people who have attempted to cure and eradicate this pandemic have been assassinated, lynched, exiled, and imprisoned. The question remains, when will, if ever, the pandemic of racism end? This presentation will cover the pandemic of racism in the areas of sociology, economics, politics, biology, and I'm not sure if that word is spelled right, but psychology. Assassinations. Patrice Lumumba, he tried to find a cure and eradicate racism on the continent. Biko, he also was assassinated trying to find a cure and eradicate racism. The Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, exiled. Fred Hampton, assassinated. Marielle Franco, assassinated in Brazil, trying to eradicate and address systemic racism. And of course, our Prince of Peace, Dr. King, dedicated his entire life to trying to eradicate the racism and disease of America. Colin Kaepernick, whiteballed for merely taking a stance by taking a knee to bring attention to systemic racism and police brutality. Still, he's not in the league today, but I'm sure he would appreciate his brothers in the NBA standing in solidarity with him. Black Lives Matter, the modern civil rights movement. Three powerful words that incite white fragility, fear, and anger. From that, we get white lives matter, blue lives matter, all lives matter. So obviously the issue is Black lives matter. From our Dr. Bobby E. Wright, clinical psychologist, he writes, everywhere one finds whites and Blacks in close proximity to each other, the whites are in control. Whether it is Chicago or Zimbabwe, Yet Blacks rarely question this extraordinary universal phenomena which defies every known statistical law of probability. Know thy enemy, or Black lives will not matter. If you don't understand white supremacy, everything else that you think you understand will only serve to confuse you. Nearly Fuller. Westerners define the word enemy as a person or nation who feels hatred for, fosters harmful designs, structural systems against, or engages in antagonistic activities against another people or nation, an adversary or an opponent. The wildebeest and the lion. I included this in the presentation because I think the wildebeest gives us a prime example of what an enemy is innately. When the mother wildebeest drops her calf to Mother Earth, innately and instinctively, she knows to clean the afterbirth. The calf knows to stay low in high brush and to stay upwind to protect it from the lions, the hyenas, and all the other carnivores. The question is, are we less intelligent than the wildebeest, who recognize and accept that lions and other carnivores are their enemies? Our beloved Queen Warrior scholar, in her seminal work, The ISIS Paper, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing gives us the functional definition of racism and white supremacy as follows. I actually can't read the end of these, this particular one, so bear with me. The local and global power system structured and maintained by persons who classify themselves as white, whether consciously or subconsciously determined. This system consists of patterns of, I'm not sure what that says.
Of perception.
A perception, thank you. Patterns of perception, logic, symbol formation, thought, speech, action, and emotional response, as conducted simultaneously, I believe, in all areas of people activity: economics, education, entertainment, law, labor, politics, religion, war. Black genocide is the most effective way to prevent white genetic annihilation through an array of psychopathic behaviors, warfare, including biological, chemical, psychological, environmental, and structural systems. From other esteemed clinical psychologists, Dr. Marimba Ani, in her seminal book, Urugu, somehow I can't see the whole top of that, White Supremacy. I have something blocking that very top line.
Is a global system of power
And control over,
over non-white. Yeah, you got it?
Yes, over non-white, with Black people being the primary target in every aspect of life. From Dr. Maya Angelou, when a person or nation shows you who they are, believe them. Whites have a psychopathic personality. By ignoring this trait in the white race, the lack of ethical and moral development, Blacks have made and are still making a tragic mistake in basing the worldwide Black liberation movement on moral suasion. It is pathological for Blacks to keep attempting to use moral suasion on a people who have no morality where race is a variable. Dr. Bobby E. Wright. I'm gonna skip down to the last one. Well, no, actually, I'm gonna read it. The European American community's drive to disguise and conceal their culpability and guilt in the destruction and oppression of Africans through their collective societal institutional arms requires American society, both whites and its Black victims as well, to operate in a kind of collective psychosis. Kobe Kanzimbe Kolongi Kambon. Lastly, in enemies, clash of the races. Kiar Mahabuti tells us we must understand that systems are not void of people, and people invent, initiate, and perpetrate systems, not vice versa. Not to deal with the race issue and not to identify white people as the enemy is a height of folly, and more than anything else speaks to why we are enslaved and colonized worldwide. If you can't define your enemy, you can't build a defense to protect yourself against him. Frederick Douglass, if there is no struggle, there is no progress. Those who profess to favor freedom and yet depreciate agitation are men who want crops without plowing up the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the awful roar of its mighty waters. The struggle may be a moral one, or it may be a physical one, and it may be both moral and physical, but it must be a struggle. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, it never will. Our newest ancestor, John Lewis, talks to us about getting in good trouble, necessary trouble. I appeal to all of you to get into this great revolution that is sweeping this nation. Get in, stay in the streets of every city, every village and hamlet of this nation until true freedom comes, until the revolution of 1776 is complete. Freedom is not a state. It is an act. It is not some enchanted garden perched high on a distant plateau where we can finally sit down and rest. Freedom is a continuous action we all must take, and each generation must do its part to create an even more fair, more just society. John Lewis. Our children in Soweto, they attempted to get in good trouble. They resisted being forced to learn
Afrikaans.
I apologize. Give me a second.
Yes, brother, take a deep breath.
Yeah, take your time.
Can't help but to see the image of school children massacred while singing songs of freedom. We protested in the 60s. You're protesting today. In response to the protests, Tennessee just recently passed a law that would punish protesters by taking away their right to vote. I guess
Wow.
First Amendment rights does not matter. Yes, this is real. This just came out in the news last week.
I did not see that. Oh, man.
Yes, the Republican-led State House passed this law. I'm sure the ACLU, or I hope others, will challenge this law, but the federal courts are stacked with Trump sympathizers, and the Supreme Court, there's no guarantee it would be overturned there as well. Stamped from the beginning by our dear brother, Ibram X. Kendi. Time and again, racist ideals have not been cooked up from the boiling pot of ignorance and hate. Time and again, powerful and brilliant men and women have produced racist ideals in order to justify the racist policies of their era, in order to redirect the blame for their era's racial disparities away from those policies and onto Black people. Fooled by racist ideals, I did not fully realize that the only thing wrong with Black people is that we think something is wrong with Black people. I did not fully realize that the only thing extraordinary about white people is that we think something is extraordinary about white people. Black Americans' history of oppression has made Black opportunities, not Black people, inferior. Dick Gregory tells us the system has us thinking that legal means right, but remember, slavery was legal. What is the impact of 24/7, 365 racism / white terror? What does it impact economically, sociologically, psychological, political, biological? Economics, permanent underclass. I don't know if you can see the chart on the far right. The wealth gap, net worth of whites, the median income of whites is of $171,000 compared to Blacks. That's not a typo, $17,150. The top 1% holds 25 trillion in wealth, which exceeds the wealth of the bottom 80%. We know what impacts wealth: home ownership, income, higher education. 23 million white households today have more than 356,000 in net assets, compared to only 700,000 Black holes with the same net assets. Unemployment for whites today, we believe these numbers, 12.4. Blacks, 16.8. I don't believe it's 16.8, but that's the information that's available. How do we get into this predicament? Black codes. Black codes were laws that denied African-American men the right to vote or act as jurors. Black people could not own guns, take certain jobs, or own land. And if you were out of work, it was considered a crime. You were arrested. Then you would experience another form of enslavement. These Black codes only applied to Black people. In Mississippi, the codes prevented Blacks from buying or renting farmland, required them to sign a yearly labor contract with a white employer. The Black code, excuse me, also allowed the state to send Black children to work for white employers if their parents could not support them. For people to be so inferior, white folks sure have a lot of systems in place. The social aspect, sociology of relating to human society, life, welfare, and relationships. Look at that animation on the right of your screen. So even our children don't escape the false doctrine of white supremacy. Look at Franklin. They could even give a brother a chair with some back support, sitting alone. It impacts us in so many ways. Karens and Kens, policing Black bodies and spaces, the extrajudicial killing of unarmed Black men, women, and children, policing our hair, the prison industrial complex, genocide, what I call the urban detainment centers, the projects, Karens, policing Black spaces. State-sanctioned extrajudicial killing of Black people, the killing of a person by governmental authorities or individuals without the sanction of judicial proceedings or legal process. Excuse me. 4 little Black girls murdered in church. Surely Black people could find safety in a house of worship, right? Think again. In South Carolina, the African Methodist Church, 9 Black angels slaughtered, massacred by a demon who killed them while they were in prayer. I should add, the cops took them to Burger King to feed him. I guess you develop an appetite when you're murdering Black people. Dr. King speaks of the horror of police brutality. We've been bombed. The state of affairs for Black men, women, and children. In fact, public health officials have urged community leaders and elected officials to declare police violence as a public health concern, which it is. How many of us was thinking when we saw that horrific video of George Floyd being lynched that we would have another person clinging to life? Jacob Blake. Savages. One kills to eat, and the other enjoys killing. George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor. $20 alleged counterfeit bill. Death, jogging, death, sleeping, death. Trayvon, surely you should be able to make it back home from the store minding your own business. Surely that wouldn't happen again. It did. Elijah McClain in Aurora, Colorado, just trying to make it home. Just trying to make it home wearing a ski mask. This young man even apologized to those who choked him and the EMTs who administered some type of drug. No one has been arrested. No one has been charged. Surely our children would be spared. Not George Julius Stenny Jr. became the youngest in US history at age 14 to be sentenced to death by way of electrocution. He was so young and so small, they had to prop him up on phone books. 70 years later, what was his crime? He saw two little white girls walking past his home who were found raped and murdered. They brought him in, gave him a blank sheet of paper. He was illiterate. They said, put an X on this paper, which he did. And they proceeded to write a confession, told his family to get out of town before sundown. They executed him. 70 years later, they vacated his conviction. Couldn't get any younger than George Stenny, right? Tamir Rice, age 12. Ayanna Monet Stanley Jones, age 7. And look at this angel. Arrested at school because she threw a temper tantrum. Placed her in twist ties. She begged and she pleaded. I could not add that video to this presentation. She's traumatized, or she will be traumatized, I suspect, for life. Our babies are not safe. Other victims of extrajudicial killing by cops. As if structural racism wasn't enough. Black people, we also have to deal with the coronavirus, the double pandemic. 33% of hospitalizations were Black, although we made up just 18% of the community. We know the factors that lead to us being at a high incident rate, pre-existing conditions, working in essential jobs, structural inequities, Black and Indigenous Americans experienced the highest death tolls from COVID-19 per 100,000. One in 125 Blacks have died, or 88.4 deaths per 100,000. I thought this was very telling. If Black people and Indigenous people had died at the same actual rate as white Americans, 19,500 Black folks would be alive today. It affects us 3.6 times more than white Americans. Same chart, leading in death. This is from medical apartheid. Some of us believe there's just certain things that an enemy wouldn't do. You would be incorrect if you thought that. They were working on biological weapons that would impact certain ethnic groups. The psychological impacts of racism, the constant and consistent stress, white terror, 24/7, 365, fear and anxiety. Even when we call 911 for an emergency, I tell my family today, if you call 911, if you call a police officer to your home, trust and know you are the one you call the police on could be killed. It happens. It's not being paranoid, it's the truth. I say think twice, pause, then think twice again. And one of my pet peeves when we project self-hatred onto ourselves, we say things like, they only treated us like that because we are Black. They only did this because I'm Black. They only followed me because I'm Black. I say, no, they did it because they are racist. Stop making Black the excuse for racism. White people don't hate us because we are Black. They hate us if they hate us because they are racist. Imagine desiring freedom, and white folks creating some disease called drapomania, if I'm pronouncing that right, Brother Minister. They said it was a mental illness in which the slave possessed an irrational desire for freedom and a tendency to try to escape. You were thought to be insane if you sought freedom. What is wrong with you? Our perception of the world is an elaborate illusion created by a few white ruling elites that controls the media, the images that the world sees, and the narrative that it believes. History is a lie, religion is a control system, media is manipulation, government is a corporation. At the core is the myth of white supremacy. I'm not sure this is an actual picture, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was. We've been placed in zoos, Otabanga. And look at this little African girl placed on exhibit in a human zoo in Belgium. The Devil's Punch Bowl. I never hear anybody talk about the Devil's Punch Bowl. We should know about it, as we know about Tulsa. The political, how the pandemic of racism affects the political, what I call the machinations of power, the Electoral College, the prison industrial system, assassination of Black messiahs. White people make decisions, Black people select choices based off white people's decisions. Electoral College, they ought to put a K, it'll keep America. Allows a true minority to retain power, created in 1787. The South wanted to count our enslaved ancestors. 40% of the South population was our enslaved ancestors. And of course, we were only counted as 3/5 of a human. The question is, why does this system remain in place today? Why is it that a person could get almost 3 million more votes, but yet lose an election? Because it allows a true minority to retain power. And even today, with all the hell and chaos and destruction and confusion in America right now, they did a recent poll and it says that half of white voters would still cast their ballots for this white nationalist, this white supremacist. What does that tell you? The same poll, the important issues. The economy is number one. Race and ethnic inequality and economic inequality is down there at the bottom. But we know as Black people, racism permeates all of those issues for us. Others are just concerned about keeping their money. The prison industrial complex. Yet Black men comprise, or Black people comprise 13% of the population, at least that's what we're told. But look at the numbers in the prison population. You're over, I can't hardly see it, I don't have my glass. Over 33.1%. All of these systems have one purpose and one goal in mind, and that is to protect, to advance, and to secure white genetic annihilation, white supremacy, white privilege, and white nationalism. If we're locked up, obviously we can't procreate. You get convicted of a felony, you lose your right to vote. Blacks in the United States are incarcerated at nearly 6 times the rates of whites. Oftentimes we misinterpret these stats and we say because Blacks commit more crimes than whites. Death penalty and race. If you are of the mindset to commit a crime and your victim is white, they want you to know, don't do it. 77% when the victim is white receive the death penalty. But if you kill somebody from your own, if you kill somebody Black, 15%. White supremacy leaves no stone unturned. Black lives still don't matter. Everything we do, we have to protest. 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment, the 19th Amendment. These cops act with impunity and get immunity. And district attorneys, I call them devil advocates. That's what the DA stands for in my vocabulary. They become complicit. Our government has always conspired against us, but they want you to be silent about your conspiracy theories until it comes out at the CIA. Yes, they put anthrax and drugs and guns and everything else in our community. Anything goes when it's about maintaining white supremacy, the so-called doctrine of white supremacy. I'm not sure if any of you, I'm pretty sure you're a pretty knowledgeable group. And I'll just say this very quickly, the black rat experiment. I don't know where I read it, where I saw it, but I know there was an experiment that consisted of placing, let's just say 100 rats in a cage that only can accommodate half that number. They had one spigot for water, very little food. And these behavior scientists found out that the black rats began to become cannibals. They became over-aggressive. They became oversexed. If we think that the project is not born from this experiment, we would be naive. They use white rats when they want to find out cures, something. The white rat has more genetically compatible traits, I guess, with white folks. Black on black violence. We should stop uttering that falsehood. We don't hear the term white on white violence, but yet you look at this chart, 3,000 plus whites were killed, and they were killed by 2,500 other whites. 2,400 black people were killed by 2,200 other blacks. Maybe we need to start saying white on white violence. Dr. Bobby Wright reminds us that blacks kill blacks because they have never been trained to kill whites. When you see something that is not right, not just, not fair, you have a moral obligation to say something, to do something. But what would we tell our children? This is second to the last slide. What did you do? What must we do? We have several options. Option 1, vote in all elections, local, state, and national. Option 2, dual citizenship, relocate to Africa. Option 3, continue to succumb, submit, acquiesce, and surrender. Option 4, run for elected office to facilitate change. Or option 5, join the NFAC, the Not Effing Around Coalition. This Black Army, they appear to be disciplined to me. This picture was taken when they took over Stone Mountain in Georgia, the mountain that has Confederate enslavers perched high and carved into a hill. I saw no white militias that day. They're just an option. November the 4th, 2020, a day of reckoning. Win, lose, or draw, Black people. I suggest you be on high alert for the real possibility of an elevated rage and onslaught of white domestic terrorism. If the orange one is not reelected, unlike the bull, will we finally see the matador, systemic racism, for who he truly is? He uses the illusion of red cape to distract, confuse, and pacify before he then kills the bull. Or will it once again be too little, too late? And I would ask the minister if he would do me the honor of reading the words of wisdom from my brother, Ayikwe Armin from 2000 Seasons. And that is the last slide. Brother Minister.
Soon we shall end this remembrance, the sound of it. Soon it will end. Its substance is what continues. The ending of our remembrance should give greater force to the continuation of the beginning flow in search of our way. The white destroyers, what a scene of carnage. What other desolation they have already left, stretching over this land. What a destruction of bodies. What a death of souls. But the reign of the destroyers cannot reach beyond this 2000 seasons. This reign is surely bound within 2000 seasons of our oppression, for their greed is preparing deep graves for them. It will rise against them, the torrential wrath of all things in the universe, all bodies, all souls, still with the seed of life, unkilled in them.
Ashe.
All right, Brother Malik, that was very heartfelt. And why don't you share your screen, and we can have people come up, and I appreciate that everybody kind of held their comments and held their questions. Just unshare your screen, Brother Malik. Yeah. And now we can have the discussion part. I'm just going to let Brother Malik Kafele to take questions and comments as we proceed on. We have about 30 minutes. Unmute yourselves and you can begin.
Well,
I'll start. Thank you for the presentation. That was a whole lot of talk about the devil. Almost more of it than I like to hear because I know that stuff already for the most part. And what I really want to hear about are ways that we can counter that. I mean, I think for the most part, you're in light company here. So I doubt if anybody in this company is going to disagree with much of the history of what they've been doing. But I think we all know that now. So I hope we could start coming up with some solutions and some ways that we can get around that. Because the time keeps coming, and I don't know where we're at in that 2000 seasons, how many more years they have to reign. But one solution that is in line with what you said, I'm going to share my screen. This is a group of brothers here in Oakland. If they come and work with us at Wose often, and anywhere you see Black people in need, you often see these brothers. So this is something that they have been posting. We've been doing this privately for some time, but this is the first time that I've seen them say it publicly. So this is not my organization. This is CRC, Community Ready Corps, but they've been a close friend of Wose for a long time. So you see their getreadystayready.org/training. And they have an outstanding training program, and they do firearms training. So they're local, they're here in the community. These are the brothers that you would always see them on the news when the sisters who took over that apartment, they were guarding her for a long time. So that is one step in the direction of solution.
Thank you for that. Anyone else?
I just had a question. Malik, you had mentioned the Electoral College, and everybody fussed about it after the last election, but I don't remember there being any other kinds of movement or stands or anything to try and change that. Did I miss something?
No, you're correct. Your observations. Every once in a while, I come across an article saying, "Vote to rid or to remove the Electoral College," but it serves the purpose it was designed for. It allows these so-called red states to be able to decide the outcome of elections. Because obviously, if you're in a just society, one person, one vote. If I have 2.5 million or whatever it is, if I have one vote more than you, I should be the victor. But it doesn't meet their it allows the true minority, as I call them, to retain power. So I don't think it's going to go anywhere anytime soon. I mean, you can't get anything past the Grim Reaper right now. Mitch McConnell, one person can hold up any progress, any perceived progress. So the whole system would have to be torn down and rebuilt.
You know, I see a lot of this in the context of the 2050 deadline that you often hear the media speak of. That seems to be the magic number when whites will no longer be the majority in this country. Now, they have the whites. They have not been still. They have not been active, knowing and understanding this. They are the ones that compile these statistics. So their goal, their tactic at that point is to try to retard all aspects that will diminish that number. And so what we see very dramatically with the Trump administration are policies and efforts to get immigrant Blacks and Latinos out of the country, to bar them and to keep them from coming into the country. Then the existing Blacks that remain inside, we see the pressure being continually and constantly brought against us in an increased fashion. And my thinking that in part of that, it's not just their lust for blood, but part of that is to get large numbers of Blacks to self-deport. And for those that don't self-deport and they remain inside of this country, especially the young Black men that is of childbearing age, you got to get them out some kind of way. You either imprison them or shoot them down in the streets.
Right.
And all of this coalesce in a way that keeps that Black majority number up there, and it pushes that 2050 dateline a little further away. Now, I think that our strategy and our tactics, for one thing, is to vote in every election at the local, state, and federal level. The other thing is to unify ourselves around this notion of Pan-Africanism. And we have to begin to create some kinds of barriers and separations from the white majority. You know, a lot of our families are mixed, and you know, we may have mixed grandkids or what have you. And this too is part of a strategy that diminishes our numbers. The biracial factor most of the time goes toward the white majority, and they intermarry with other whites. So that cuts off the Black seed at that point. So I think Pan-Africanism is the most cohesive system for us to organize ourselves in a way that we have some independence and economics within our own communities, and not really worry a whole lot about white people, understanding the tactics and the strategies that they brought against us. But we need to be focused more on organizing within ourselves. And as we organize within ourselves, we may very well find that there is more support, even from whites and for others that would be willing to work and support us. But we have to give up this needy, begging mentality that has been fostered on so many of us. We have to stop adulating white skin and mixing our blood. We got to be careful with those things. We have to think very deeply about that. Because we are a minority, we are a tiny minority. You talk about absorption. I was reading an article on Facebook, some of you may have seen it, and I don't really know how accurate it is, but in this article, it outlined how all the Black people in Argentina were absorbed genetically, and you don't find Black people there. They were all absorbed genetically through this system of intermarrying, creating biracials and marrying the biracial with other whites, and then the pure Blacks eventually dying off, and boom, there's just no Black people there anymore. And so we don't, you know.
Kadabasi, can I add? Yeah. So with respect to the Argentina thing, also there was a large number of Africans, African Argentines that died in a war. It was a large amount, and they went into the war and died. And so there was, in fact, a systematic way of eliminating Black people. And the first person that I heard talk about that was Dr. Asa Hilliard. And there was a little book that he referred to, and the name of it escapes me, but it talked about that. You know, he was saying that in the 80s.
Right.
You know, he was saying that.
He saw it. He was out ahead of us.
Yeah, he said that in the 80s. And so it's just like anything. You have coffee and you put too much cream, you won't even know you had coffee. So yeah.
That's right.
Anyone else? I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Kat. Did I cut you off?
I finished my thought. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else want to step up and contribute to this discussion?
Yes.
But before we go on, does someone know who Kalahari Dunjuma is?
I don't. No,
Anybody know Kalahari Dunjuma?
No, I don't know.
Kalahari.
Ask about a reference.
Announce yourself with Kalahari or turn on your picture, or Minister Imhotep, you're the host, remove them.
Kalahari, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, I would remove them. There's two of them too, which is kind of funny.
Oh, okay. I saw Brother Damani. You're going to handle that? Oh, he raised his hand. He's raising his hand. Can you unmute yourself?
Who, me? It's unmuted. You talking Damani?
Hold your thought, Damani. We're trying to address.
No, they're not unmuting. I would just remove them, and so they'll have to come. Oh, they just raised their hand, but
yeah. Can they?
Who referred them?
Can they write to the chat?
they're not speaking, which is why I'm saying remove them. They're not speaking and they're not identifying themselves.
Okay. All right.
Come back with your name, please. We'd love to have you if you're with us, but show us your name or your face. I mean, show us your voice or your face.
All right. So Brother Damani had his hand up. So come forward, Brother Damani.
Yes. Yeah, I know you brought up the psychopathic racial personality of Dr. Bobby E. Wright's book. And I like that phrase he talked about the matador. When the bull finally sees the matador, I know you had a quote about it. When the bull finally turns and recognizes the matador, it comes too late.
Right.
But I see a lot of things going on in society today that wasn't going on in years past. I see, like for the NBA today, the NBA brothers today are protesting the game. So it seemed like we are picking up momentum. It seemed like, I guess I'm getting to the cultural nationalism part. Dr. Karenga talking about cultural nationalism. You got to, when you're cultural nationalism, you're going the culture route precedes the political struggle. The cultural struggle precedes the political struggle. The cultural struggle wins the hearts and the minds of the people. It changes their minds. And I see that blacks have culture power. Somewhere I read that, the whites might have the political power in this country, but the culture power and the culture charisma belongs to Black Americans worldwide. And I think we got to use that to our advantage, that culture charisma and that culture power, understanding what culture is. I know culture, short definition of culture. Culture is influence, concepts and influences that directs the collective behavior of a people. And I see our entertainers and our athletes, they have a lot of influence. I just think we're winning the culture war. We're in a culture war. Do you see Trump trying to position white European culture on this side and what Black Lives Matter is doing? And I think we're winning the culture war. It's just going to be a long struggle. We can't go to sleep this time. Like after the 60s and 65, we went to sleep. I just think we just got to stay vigilant and keep pushing forward. But we definitely need to arm ourselves. But the only problem with arming ourselves, they're cowards. They hide behind state violence. And so they're ambushing people. They're they're ambushing people. I ain't gonna say what else I want to say, but
we get the point.
I like your thought. I think one of the things that the great activists, Pan-Africanists, Kwame Ture says that we have to be, you know, and he would stretch out the word organized. And I'm glad that Malik had put, you know, so it was some brothers that returned from the military, and they organized themselves into that militia. And I don't know if you've seen a couple of videos with them. You know, when they show up, the police turn around. You know, so and those guys don't look like they're playing. You know, I have a friend that I used to work with, and he's like that. You know, and I sent him that video, and so yeah, you know, at some point, and you never know how it's going to be unless you're presented with this situation, but at some point, I would like to see when a person is filming something like that, that they put their camera down and go in and physically engage those police. Because for me, every time you see like, okay, what happened to Eric Gardner, or what happened to George Floyd, that's like that's like a body swinging from a tree. You know, because you see that. But we also need to see our, as Dr. Hilliard pointed out, our story of resistance. You know, where we're not taking it. And, you know, that's easier said than done. But, you know, that's, I think, what it's going to take. It's going to take, oh, well, we shouldn't mess with them for at least for a while, because they might shoot back. Or you know, so I think it has to be a two-pronged approach. It needs to be, the laws need to be stiffened. So if you can commit these atrocities on Black people and you just get a paid holiday, you just go home and you know, you don't, I mean, or you might get fired, but you could just go to the next, you can go to the next police department and get hired. You know, so those laws have to change. You know, when I was asking some public defenders about this phenomenon here in Sacramento, one of them said that they should, you know, you should have like your license and your insurance connected with that. And so when you do that, when you do something like that to a person in the community, your license is taken away. Your license is taken away, your insurance is taken away, and your pension is taken away. And it's these type of economic deterrents that will cause people to say, okay, I'm not, you know, I better think twice
right
before I kill this person, because I can lose my livelihood. But if nothing is done, you know, they still have their license. They could go to the next police department. Then, you know.
Yeah, you know, Imhotep, I want to share with you, I've been listening to Manu 2 o'clock on Sundays. And he actually broke down about 6 goals to dismantle the status quo of policemen. And I took notes here. And he said the first one was to stop hiring white racist, white nationalists. There is a white nationalist list on the FBI that they have been tracking for years. Okay, and so based upon their list, then they should not be policemen. Then number 2, he said that they can remove the current white nationalists based upon the list right now, police officers. Also, 2, he said to have them personally liability, you know, have them personal, you know, liability, sue them personally. And the city, instead of, I guess, along with the city paying the lawsuits. And then he said there should be a national misconduct registry, a national database. So all these cops that's doing
that's murdering should have a database. So they cannot go to another county, like you said, and get another job. And also too, he suggested that they should have a whistleblower hotline for even the good cops to whistleblow on the bad cops, you know. And number 4, he said, of course, to depower the police union.
Yeah.
Yeah, white folks get, because white folks get violent if things don't go their way. So he talked about the AFL-CIO, American Union, I guess, let's see, I guess that's the police union.
Did you say that again? Did you say the AFL-CIO?
Yeah. American Union, the police union.
No, that's
part
not.
of this?
That's not the police union. No.
No, I thought you said the police union was a part of it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, the police union is a part of it. Hopefully my notes are correct. So, and then he said, just real quick, there's 5 phases that the people should fight for. He said, number 1, we should fight for the charges, fight for them to get it, fight for the convictions, because if they're convicted, they don't get charged, have adequate sentencing, and the police officers should serve their full sentences. You know, when they're, instead of getting out of it, they should serve their full sentence when they're sentenced.
Yes.
I guess they get out. Anyway, I just want to share that he talked about that.
That's beautiful, Bobby. Thank you for bringing that forward. That's some good information.
Yeah, that's new. Yeah.
I want to acknowledge some faces. So Kalahari, thank you for joining us. We're able to see you now, and thank you for going through our protocols. Brother Sundiata, is that my? Is this Michelle's son, Sundiata? Wow, man. How are you? I think the last time I saw you were a little kid, and now you're grown man.
I think so. I think it was about maybe before I went to college. I think I did last. So, Mom, she sent me the text about this call, and I kind of had to take on the phone call for a minute, but now I'm back and trying to catch part of the discussion here.
Is there anything you want to say? I just want to let everybody know this is a Wose youth, grew up in Wose. His mom, Michelle Cummings, has returned to Wose, and certainly glad to see him. You know, he's been a Bongo Congo dreadlock Rasta man from creation. And Sundiata, I remember this. I remember you saying this one time. 20 years ago, we had a dreadlock conference, and we had it at the San Pinel Center, and so we had Sundiata. He was on stage, and we had a panel of people, and we talked about locks. And one of the things he said, you know, I like my locks because when I do headers in soccer, I don't hurt my head.
Good point.
Yeah. That was a long time ago.
Great to see you. Great to see you, sir. And if I may ask, how old are you?
I'm 31.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, real youngster.
Okay. Great to see you, man. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
Anyone else want to make a comment? We got about 2 minutes. Go ahead.
There are a couple of things I wanted to note. One is when I was talking about the Electoral College, and I was just looking at it, it can change, and the numbers can change based on the census. And I've been going around with a part-time job doing that, going to people who have not filled out their census. And a lot of us do not know what the census is. And a lot of us just don't want to participate in anything that might look like the government. So you don't have to answer all of the questions. What's important is how many people there are. And for race, they give you some options and you can figure out what you want to do. The second thing is that there is a bill being discussed called SB 1079 that if it passes would give a little more opportunity to purchase foreclosed properties, Right now, when somebody bids on a foreclosed property, you have to have cash in hand. This bill would let a person who intends to occupy the property or people who are tenants in the property to say they intend to bid, put in the last and highest bid, and then that gives you 45 days to get your mortgage together. So it gives people a little opportunity. It doesn't change what it takes to get a mortgage, but at least it gives you a little more time. And I think that the people who, you know, foreclosures are not always cheap, but it may give you an option to purchase a property that's a little bit less than what the going rate is out there. But we have to know about it. We have to watch it. Nobody's gonna come and tell us.
That's really good information. And those of you that are listening on September the 9th, Sister Celeste is going to be talking about basics for financial literacy. So you might want to join us on that Wednesday evening and hear that discussion. Okay, we got about 7 minutes. Anyone else would like to share with us?
Let's Kalahari.
Brother Kalahari, go ahead, brother.
I think Brother Malik was talking when he said about the rats. I think he was speaking, he had gotten that from a book called Even the Rats Were White. I'm not sure of the title, but I think that's where he got that from.
I've heard of that book. I've heard of that book. Yeah.
Can you say the book, because his audio was bad? What book was it?
Even the Rats Were White.
Yes.
Oh,
And that was my question. One of my questions for Malik was, did you say where that study came from? Where that?
Well, you know, it's funny because I actually have that book. It's by, I think his name is Guthrie or something like that. I have the book, Even the Rat Was White, but actually I got that. I don't know if I, you know, when you read a lot of things and you're looking at a lot of tapes and you're looking at hidden colors, what have you, it's hard to sometimes pinpoint where did I get that from. But I didn't get it from that book because I haven't even started reading that. I mean, it might be in that book. I'm not certain.
Yeah, I'd love to know. I'll try to do a little research, but just in general for us, especially for that kind of stuff, if we're going to throw out studies like that, we should really know where they come from. If we're not sure, you need to pull that out for you, throw it out there for us.
Oh, but I can assure you.
But I'd like to read about that. I definitely, I've never heard of it, so I'd like to read it.
Yeah, that was new to me too. I'm gonna read that.
I almost want to say.
Oh yeah, that study's been around a while.
Hold up, everybody. Let's let Malik respond. Go ahead, Malik.
I almost want to say when I saw it in the form of a documentary. It wasn't a book that was held in my hand that I was reading, so I don't know if it was YouTube, some other video source. But I actually saw the actual videos. It was in the form of a documentary. So it's actually it's a real thing, and I think the projects are modeled after that particular experiment. That's what behavior scientists do. They study behavior.
Yeah, I heard of that study. Like you, I don't recall specifically where I came across it, but I heard of that study probably more than 20, 25 years ago.
I want to add one more thing, because this is a current event, and I also covered it briefly in the presentation. Oftentimes, going back to the police, oftentimes we hear that in Chicago, 80, 90 people were shot. We hear in St. Louis a high number, whatever else. And I truly believe, now obviously I can't prove this beyond a reasonable doubt, but if you think back to what happened last night in Wisconsin with the white racist who, before he shot and killed some protesters, he was gathered with another group of militia. They were palling around to police. The police told him to be careful. He gave them some water. And even after he had shot down these people, there were bystanders, witnesses saying, he just shot some people, he just shot some people, he just shot some people. And every police vehicle went past him. Matter of fact, he was able to leave the scene where he was shooting and he made it home. So my whole point is when we hear about mass shootings in Chicago, to me, we would be naive if we assume that Ray Ray and Pookie are behind these shootings, because as a retired firefighter in Oakland, I always tell people the story of there was a car accident in front of this firehouse. And so we responded right in front of our station. Police came. When the police came, it was about 6 white youth who got out. And when they came out, you know, your African brain instinct tell you it's something different about these white guys. When I talked to a police officer, he told me before they towed their vehicle, he said in the trunk of their car, they had all these weapons. And I said, wow, what is a group of white people being in deep East Oakland at that time of day with all of these weapons? And then it occurred to me, when we hear about these mass shootings, we would be naive if we assume that some Black gang members are creating this kind of carnage alone without some white militia under the cloak of darkness participating. Doesn't it make sense? Wouldn't you go into a Black neighborhood under the cloak of darkness and shoot Black people randomly? Because why? Because the media and even other Black people, we would assume somebody Black is behind these shootings. Now, I'm not saying somebody Black is not playing a part in some of these shootings, but I think it would be naive on our part if we assume that Black people are killing 60 and 70 people over a weekend without some outside help.
Yeah, good point.
Well, now, Malik, I'm sure you're aware, and many that are on this Zoom, they've already confirmed that in Chicago, they do bring weapons into Chicago, into the so-called inner city to disperse. Keep in mind, there are no Black people that you know that have a poppy field in their backyard. Mm-hmm. And there is no Black person that you or I know that has an airplane that goes across the border to bring drugs in. And then lastly, there are no Black gun manufacturers. You know, so yes, your a guess or assumption or intuition is correct. We have about 1 minute, and I just want to say for next time we're going to have a sister from the University of Kumasi. So she's going to call in all the way from Ghana. Her name is Nana Pukia. I'm going to ask Sister Darnisha if you could say a few words about our guest next week.
Nana Pokia is a language instructor. I want to say that she's the head of the language department at the university, at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Technology, which is in Kumasi. She is the professor who, when I was there on my Fulbright last year, she headed up a week of tree instruction for all of the Fulbright scholars who was there. She didn't actually do all the instruction, but she was the department head and kind of headed it up, and just was really kind while we were there. And I've managed to keep in touch with her. She was actually planning to come and visit Oakland this summer prior to all of the stuff going on here. But all of that to say that she's disappointed that she was not able to come and visit us, but she would like to do a presentation on language and culture, on the language and culture of Ghana. I told her, she was asking me like what to talk about. I said, well, I was really surprised at the wealth of languages and just how many languages and how complicated that topic is. And then she talked to us about it from the perspective of a teacher and teaching all those languages. So just talking to us generally about language and culture in Ghana. She's also, Nana is actually a title in Ghana. So she is truly a Nana, which means that she is in line to be the chief of her area, which she says she has no intention to do because she loves teaching. So she's going to do that presentation, and then we are going to be following her presentation up starting in October with tree instruction, which is the Ashanti language that is spoken in many areas of Ghana. So she'll be providing instruction for us every Saturday morning. I think we settled on about 10 a.m. our time, which is 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, was just 5 o'clock her time on Saturday. It'll be a class offered by Wose. She will teach it. You know, she's a college instructor, and I'm sure a great teacher. There's not going to be an official charge for this, and she insists that she will not ask for a fee. She won't give a price for teaching this. She says she wants to do this. This is a gift that she wants to give, you know, to her brothers and sisters in America. But when I write this up, I'm going to write it in a way that says that a donation up to $10 would be appreciated, just because I would like to give her something for her time. So the way I'm going to write this up when I do the advertisement, it'll be up to a $10 donation. Nobody will be denied for lack of funds. 50% of what we take in will go directly to Nana Pokia, and the other 50% will, you know, be split between the two Woses. So that is my Nana Pokia. I'm excited about hopefully learning some tree, because after a week of instruction every single day for several hours, I'm a little embarrassed to tell you all that I don't know much tree. So
That's good. That's good. The greeting there is Wahota, and the response is Mihoye. Want to say Yay Da Yamiyasi. That means thanks be to God for Brother Malik's presentation. You can turn your mutes off. Let's just let him know how we feel.
Sir, well done, Brother
Yes.
Malik.